Welcome to another episode of BDC Raw. I'm your host, Josh Mitchell, and I'm getting fancy. I have fancy ear things now for when I do interviews. I'm fancy now. Not really. I mean, you can see it's a mess back here if you're watching video. If you're listening to this, it's a mess behind me. Just FYI. But thank you so much for joining us for another episode. I have an amazing person that's going to be joining me in here, Mr. Barry Jordan with Touch Point, and it's also White Glove Performance. Is that right?
Yeah, it's under the White Glove Performance Group. The dialing product that we have is called Touch Point.
Awesome. And before we started here, me and Barry were talking about using your database and what most dealerships. It's actually laughable when we talk about using your database for your benefit. We spend thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to get more and more leads into our system, yet we have a plethora of customers in our database, and how we actually follow up with those people and actually get in touch with them, obviously to service their car and to ultimately buy another car from us. I'm on the sales side. Not that I don't like service, but I'm on the sales side, Barry. I'm sorry. And so I love sales. The service side gets a little bit more tricky for me. They start, no, I'm out. But I am all about customer service. But Barry, for those people who don't know who you are, please give a brief introduction about yourself, and we'll get started with the show.
Yeah, so I've been in the automotive industry for 25 years. I went, one of the problems I had last 15 of those years was as a general manager. And one of the struggles I always had is when I would go to my team and I would say, okay, guys, we're going to have a sale. The manufacturer just put some money on the hood of this model of this car. Let's call some people and let's sell some cars out of our inventory. And I would print off a big list, and everybody would be great and wonderful. It would get handed out, and about 2 hours later, it would be in the top drawer of everybody's desk, and they would have avoided it like the plague, and they'd all be wandering by going, sorry, boss, that list was no good. No one on there buying a car, all this kind of stuff.
It's a week.
Yes. Heaven forbid your name started with anything but an A, you never got a call. And so I went looking for some software, and I couldn't find the complete package and easy to operate and all the other stuff. And I'm not here to plug that. I'm here to talk about reaching into a database. But I think industry says about 8% of a group of people are in market or could be in market to purchase a vehicle. And so that said, every 100 phone calls that are made by a dealership, potentially they could sell 8 cars, or at least have 8 good conversations. Maybe there's trade appraisal issues, maybe there's other things, maybe, but you're going to have a good conversation about selling a car or somebody buying a car just by making 100 phone calls. Well, that seems like simple math. And if you said to yourself, well, you know what, I'm 20 cars off target. Okay, well, let's phone a few hundred people and sell some cars. And it's phoning your database, knowing full well that if you're trying to sell a Silverado, you're just going to phone some Silverado people and say, hey, the new model's out. Would you consider buying black again? Or would you switch to a different color this time? And how's it been? And how are you loving it? And all the rest. You just get a conversation going. And you know this, you do this every day, but it's not about picking up the phone saying, do you want to buy a car? It's about picking up the phone, forming a relationship, and seeing if that person is interested in doing business.
Oh, yeah. And it's one of those things that, like we said, you'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on trying to create new leads to get some people into your showroom. You have a database in your CRM, or if you have an equity mining tool or anything like that you can really, pull some people ahead. And what's great, I was talking to my friends at Langenfetter Ford this morning, is the things that we don't realize like right now is that if someone is in an equity position, or if you're looking to get trades, because obviously it is getting harder and harder and harder and harder to get pre-owned inventory because of the issues with our supply chain on new.
Yeah.
So everybody's switching over to new or used. And so that car that you bought 6 months ago at the auction and if it's so happily still at your dealership, it's worth more today than it was when you bought it 6 months ago. And
Yeah.
so we're having these crazy times with our inventory, and everything's just difficult regardless across the board. That, getting someone that I've always called those like Capital Chevy Originals, or anything that you can use, but that's a car that was bought there, serviced there, and now you can say it was traded there. We have a story to tell.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, I think a lot of dealerships, they look at this as cold calling. They look at this as, you put your newbies on it. Hey, here's a list. Drum up some business.
Right.
With
And
no
then
direction.
or they take the new guy like you mentioned, and they put him in the drive-through and expect him to do 20 deals a month, and he's standing back there. He doesn't even know what to do. Like, it takes a special person to work a service drive, to get trades and have conversations, and try to have that whole dynamic work out for them. And I think dealerships try it once, try it twice, and then they say, "Wow, that doesn't work in my store. That doesn't work in my market." Where really you've got 100, I don't know, in an average dealership, you guys are quite a bit bigger, but you got 100 people a day wandering into your dealership with your product, looking to spend money in your building. That's like the best conversation you can ever have with somebody.
They're over there sitting in the showroom like, it's really slow today.
Yes.
Service is like, running around like their hair's on fire.
Right.
And you got guys in the showroom, gals in the showroom going, man, just want a customer.
Right.
Oh, they're that way.
Right.
I mean, and I think for most people, when you're looking at the call list, when you're looking at service customers, I think then the fear factor kind of throws in, the fear of not knowing what the customer might ask them back,
Yeah.
and they feel that it's just grunt work. That's what I think a lot of them feel. But when we were talking, like eight out of 100, like 8 to 10%.
Yeah.
You're planting seeds. Like, it may not be, you might get 2 sales out of 100 calls,
Yeah.
200
Yeah.
calls, but you're planting seeds for the future. And I think that's what, when you go into the mindset of really starting to work your database, you have to understand that you might be planting seeds. But you
Well,
plant enough, man. It's crazy.
there's always going to be a lead time, right? And so you might start in January, and you might sell 1 or 2 cars and whatever. But 6 months, 8 months in, you've now got a cadence figured out that if you make X number of phone calls every day, every month, every week, whatever your math is, you are likely to sell X number of cars into your or from your database. And every dealership has their own number. And I think that's the tricky part. If I went to a GM and I said, "Tell me how many people you have to talk to in your database to sell a car," I will guarantee none of them have an answer. And they might have a wild guess, but they won't have an answer. And that is a number that every dealership should know. We have to phone 200 people to sell a car. We have to phone 100. We have to phone 50. We have to phone 300. Because every dealership makes a push in their sales department, but they are making the push blindly. They don't know what the strategy is when they say we're 10 behind target, we're 100 behind target, whatever the math is. They need to say, okay, well, in order to sell those cars, we know people are going to come in, we get that, but what are we going to do to reach out to actively sell those 30 cars we need to get to target? We were talking, as you mentioned earlier, about the snow that interrupted your sales momentum, and it took 4 or 5 days out of the shortest month of the year. Well, that doesn't help. And so what are you going to do to make up those 4 days? So you should be able to, as a team, sit down and say, here's the scoop. We need to sell 30 cars. We need to phone 700 people to do that by our math. So let's go. But they don't. They're just winging it. And there's math in there. There is solid numbers. And I'm not going to say that every dealership is identical, but know your dealership's number. And I think you'll agree with this, but the longer you talk to your database, the more likely they will engage when you call them, because they're expecting it from you, right? If you call them, they have a 5-year loan and you've called them once in that 5 years, they're probably going to ignore your call.
Oh, yeah.
But if you call them every year to touch base, how's everything, just checking in, making sure, we sent a video out to some of our people last month about the new model of ABC. Are you interested in me sending that to you? Just all this stuff, and we get conditioned as clients. There's products that I buy only when I get an email that they're on sale.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know they're going to be on sale every month. I don't know what day, but I know they're going to be on sale. So I'll just wait till I get the email, then I'll go buy it.
Yeah.
So I'm conditioned. They've trained me to not pay the regular price, but I am a regular customer and I will buy their product roughly on a monthly basis, and I'm happy with that relationship. So.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, and you hit the nail on the head, is true follow up, true professionals in our space, which goes down to obviously recruiting and training. Is a huge thing that I talk about, and something that I'm extremely passionate about is that we don't spend enough time on actually recruiting and recruiting the right people, making sure you have the right people on the bus, and the wrong people off the bus. And when you do that, you can create this culture of follow up, of taking care of our customers for life. We had a big thing that when I was at Dan Cummins Chevrolet that we talked about was like, you ain't done following up with your customer until you sell them the second car. Then you've made a customer for life. Yeah. So until you have started to sell multiple cars to these people, your follow up's not done. This isn't a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, see you later. Hopefully you give me a good survey. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Right.
Type of situation. This is a long-term relationship, and this is a true profession. We have salespeople making $80,000, $90,000, $200,000, $300,000. You probably make $500,000 selling cars nowadays.
Yeah.
And we don't recruit that type of person. And so when you develop this culture of true follow-up, like where you're going to actually follow up with the customer for life, then it's not a cold call. I think that's the biggest problem is most people don't want to make cold calls. Cold calls do suck. I get it. But if you follow up with your customer, it isn't cold.
No, it's a warm call at that point, at the very least. Yeah.
And so they know you.
Yeah. And they are expecting the call. They're expecting the dealership to reach out and say, you're according to our records, you should be ready for your oil change. How are we close, or where are you at? Oh man, I totally forgot. I was out of town. I did this, I did that. Haven't been driving the car, whatever it is. Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm at 5%. Can you get me booked in? But the other thing too that I find is, and especially on the sales side of things, is, as you said, there's a sales process that goes on. The customer comes in, picks up the car, they take delivery of it. At very best, they get a courtesy, how was your drive home last night? At the very best. And then from there, it's done and finished. Where there should be the 1 week phone call. Hey, is your navigation system giving you any grief? Have you figured out how to work everything? Did service get a hold of you to make sure that we've got the right to contact information in our system? And by the way, how's the car? You loving it? Where was your first road trip? All this stuff, and you start forming this deep relationship. And then when you call them in 6 months, they'll be saying, "Hey, it's Josh from Chevy. I'm gonna talk to him for a while. I'm gonna reach out, right?" And it's little kibitz, little back and forth. And okay, well, I just wanted to reach out and say hi really quick, and thanks for taking my call. I know you weren't expecting it, and on all the different things. And you go on to calling your other people, and you end up with these deep relationships that they wouldn't dream of buying a car from someone else.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that we all have this device right here. Every single one of us have one of these. And giving the customer your cell phone and saying, "Hey, save me your phone." So now you don't have to worry about, calling from the dealership and worrying that, they don't know who the heck it is, because there's a lot of different issues.
I'm going to give your listeners a little bit of a cheat. What you do,
ready.
You go into your phone, you create your own contact but you create it the way you want to create it. So it's got the way you want the name. You've got you got a map in there to your dealership. You've got if you're on any of the social platforms, you've got all your social platform links in your own contact. Then you share your contact with your customer, but they enter it into their phone the way you want them to enter it, just by simply sharing it. So you go in and you say, "Hey, Mr. Customer, good meeting you. Good, thanks for everything today. I really appreciate it. By the way, I'm gonna quickly share my contact with you, if that's okay." And then when they import it into their phone, it's exactly the way you want it, not the guy in the red shirt at the Chevy store, right?
They can change it
I,
up later. The weird guy
I,
at Chevy store, yeah, whatever.
I forget his name now, but he was wearing a red shirt, and I kind of liked him, and he was pretty good, and I might call him back if I want to buy a Chevy. That's not how you want to be seen in their phone. You want to be seen as Josh Mitchell, top selling, top sales, number one earning awards, blah blah, whatever you want to put in there, with a map, with your email address, with your links to your social. All that stuff is how you want to be. I did business with somebody on a personal note for about 8 months before I took him, or before I edited his contact in my phone from Bill the Water Guy. That's how I had him
Oh,
in my
I'd be ashamed if I went through some of these. I'm like, oh, this is awful.
right. But and then when I actually got his business card, and I figured out actually everything. I'm looking at this, and he's got all kinds of letters behind his name. Like he's very well educated, and he sat in my phone as Bill the Water Guy for multiple months. And in our business, we need to stand out. And if I shared my contact with you, it would have my website, it would have my email address properly, it would have my contact information that I want you to see. It would be a map. It would be anything that I wanted you to see. And so anybody listening to this, go into your phone, create your own contact in your own phone. When you meet with a customer, share that contact directly to them. Stand over their shoulder till they've added it to their contacts. And then you know that you're in their phone the way you want to be in their phone.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is when you're selling cars or whatever you're doing, you want to be the guy who is their go-to guy, no matter what happens. That if it has anything to do with the dealership that you are working for, you want them to reach out to you. So it doesn't matter if you're in sales and they need an oil change. I want you to reach out to me because
Right.
that's just a way for me to have a conversation with you, make sure everything's good. If you get in a car accident, I want to be the guy who you call to say, "Hey, I was in a car accident." I'm gonna be like, "Hey, you okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm fine, but I need a auto body shop, and I want to know who you recommend." Maybe your dealership doesn't have an auto body shop, so who do you recommend for me to get this fixed? And
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing is to become a true professional in building that relationship with that customer long term. And so when they do have any issues that pop up, maybe they have a pop up issue with service, or maybe they're having some issues getting into service. They have a point of contact that they can reach out to, and making sure that they're taken care of. That's the big thing is that you don't want to over promise and under deliver on this. You've got to take care of your customers throughout the life of their loan or in the relationship throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think everybody assumes that someone else is going to do that. I remember when I was on the floor, one of the things that got me the most um, attention, I'm going to say, is at 4 o'clock when our most customers were picking up from service, and it was crazy back there, and service was running around and trying to, it's that crazy time of day in service. As a sales consultant, I would go back and I would hang out in service. And every single one of my customers that was there, I would check them out for them. I would go get their keys. I would get their work order. It's easy to do. Did anyone go over the work order? Yep. Okay. It all makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to go get your car, and I would drive it around for them. But meanwhile, I'm in their car. I know how many kilometers they got. I know the condition it's in. I know everything. So now when I hand them the keys, I say, "Man, Sally, you're going to need a new car in a few months. This thing's getting miled up. So what I'll do is let me keep an eye out for you. I'll wait till the right special comes up. I'll give you a call in the next few months, and I'll put a strategy and a proposal together for you. How does that sound? Oh, that sounds great, Barry. Thanks very much. See you later. Didn't sell a car, but I did.
Mhm.
And Sally is ready for my proposal. She knows it's coming. She doesn't know when, but 2 months later, a proposal comes. Hey, Sally, they just dropped the interest rate. They just put $2,000 on this car. Whatever the case may be, I think now's the time to move ahead. Would you like to look at it? Absolute, Barry. How does Saturday at 2 o'clock sound?
Yeah.
And it
Planting seeds.
it honestly was, and it wasn't about putting Sally into a car she didn't like. It wasn't about moving Sally out of what she wasn't. If Sally told me, you know what, Barry, I don't care how many kilometers I put on this car, I'm going to keep it until it falls apart. Okay, no problem. You just call me if you ever need anything in service, whatever the case may be. So it's not about a mistreatment to the client. It's actually goes the other way, where it's absolute what the client wants to do is what you're going to do for them, and the client feels that and they know that.
Mm-hmm.
And then your database is clean. They want to engage with you. They want to talk to you, and alarmingly, sales follow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. And and it makes things a lot easier because when you develop that relationship with the consumer, um, ultimately they're going to send referrals because this is what they want. This is what they're asking for. This is what they're actually begging for.
Yes,
Is for
big.
us to step up,
Yes,
and do the right thing, be transparent, and just simply do the right thing's always the right thing,
yes,
plain and simple. And they want us to do that. They're begging for us to just be better. And the thing is that it's not that much better. It's literally this much better. It's like if we just get an inch better than we were, our consumers are going to be so much more willing to do business with us and send people our way just by doing some of the littlest things that mean so much. Just like a relationship, guys. This is just like a relationship. There's not two full thing. It all comes down to the little things for your consumers to have this lifelong relationship because something's going to go wrong, something's going to come arise that you're not fully knowing about, and they're not knowing about, and they're like, oh God, this is awful. And when you come in and you save the day, oh man,
and
it makes all the difference.
it's simple, Josh. Like reaching out to those parts of the world that move their clock back and forth for daylight savings time. Reaching out with a quick email just to remind them how to change the hour on their clock on that day is so simple. Just a blast of an email or a quick link or whatever the case may be. Hey, wondering how to set your time after the daylight savings time changed yesterday? Click on this link. It'll teach you how to do it. That's the level that people would love to have from us. As you said, they really want us to step up, and when we do step up, they really reward us.
Yeah, because I mean, I purchased a Porsche about a year ago, and when the time changed, I have no clue how to change it. And I'm being a man here, and it took me about 20 minutes to finally open up the book. You know, 'cause I'm a man, and we don't like instructions.
Not really.
So, but yeah, that would have been amazing if they
We
just
would
sent
rather
it to me. I would have been like, golly, this was not even where I was looking. I wasn't even looking on that side of the car to figure this out. Would have been so much easier. But yeah, it is the small things, like you said, the daylight savings time, the the little things that sometimes we don't think most customers are going to like are the things that customers are going to like,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's that simple.
you're never going to offend anybody by sending them that link.
No,
You're not. They might not open it. They might go, "What do you mean? I know how to do that. I've done it, whatever, all the time." And it's like, well, whatever, just move on then. But if in case you need it, there it is. And there's so many of those little things. I can't count how many times that there'd be a big push to sell tires, and I'd just reach out to my database and I'd say, "Hey, just so you know, the service department has just put a huge special on tires. Don't know if your car needs them or your cousin's car needs them or your daughter's car needs them or whatever. But if somebody you know is looking for tires, we have a huge sale on right now, and you should take advantage of it. And they're like, "Oh, well, thanks for thinking of me. I really appreciate that. Yeah, you know what? I was just telling my husband the other day that ABC XYZ needed tires, and do you happen to have the size? Well, I'll put you through to the parts department, and I'll follow up with you in a few days to make sure everything went smoothly." That was easy.
Yeah, it is.
So
It's the easiest things. It's
yeah,
unfortunately that it is. It's fortunate and unfortunately that it is the easiest things, the small things that really make the difference in the consumer's behavior and ultimate relationship with us. And so I want you to pitch, not an elevator pitch. You get to pitch for more than 30 seconds. But we were talking before the show. Obviously, the show's not about him. You know, he's not paying me. I'm not paying him. I don't even use his service, but I might one day. But tell us a little bit about your business and what the main reasons why you brought it up uh, is because of you saw this hole in our industry, and I found it very fascinating because all of us, I've been in the BDC world since 2011. BDC world and the internet sales department has been my world, and ultimately making dial for dollars. You know, that's how it goes. Smile and dial. Phone makes you money, boys and girls. The phone makes you money. Pick it up. But the
it
problem
does.
is sometimes it takes too long for us to pick it up, or we look at the list and we get the list of customers. And like you said earlier, they get if your name it starts with A, you might get a call. If it after A, you're done. After A,
Nobody's
you're
getting.
done with you. The leads were weak, and we've moved on.
Yeah,
Because a customer walked in or tacos got here. One of the two. Customer walked in or we got tacos. At
yeah.
least in
Facebook
Texas,
fans,
tacos is the way it goes.
yeah. And like we were talking earlier, one of the struggles I had is I spent the last 25 years of my career in the automotive world, and so obviously I love it. It's passionate to me. And the people, both the employees, the customers. It's a wonderful industry. I really enjoy it. Last 15 years of my career were as a general manager, and I had constantly when we would try to reach out, either A, we were looking to reach a target, or we're looking to take advantage of an inequity list that the manufacturer had sent us, or just somewhere where we were actually reaching out and we were actively making outbound phone calls to make sales. I found that the salespeople were so adverse to it. They might even be enthusiastic when I handed them the list or the GSM handed them the list or whatever, and they would be all, "Yeah, let's go do this. Let's sell some cars." You get about 20 minutes out of them, and they're burnt. They're done. They got a bunch of no's initially. They had some wrong phone numbers. They called a dead guy. All the stuff that happens when you're on the phone, and they just burnt out really fast. And like we were joking, you get 10 minutes into it, and now the list is in the top left hand drawer, never to be seen again. It's got a bunch of LMs beside and LMs written all over it, and that's supposed to suffice. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to get over this because my team needs some technology to help them. That's really what's wrong here. They're burning out too quick. They're getting too many no's. And so I said, well, I'm just going to go get some technology, and we'll just use that. And there was stuff out there, but nothing I could actually say this is full encompassing. This does it all. This sends an email. This sends a voicemail. This gives them a live conversation. This sends them a video link. This does absolutely everything from start to stop. And all you got to do is upload your list with Excel. And I couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. So I said, okay, well, I found a bunch of bits and pieces of some technology, and we bolted it together and hired some people way smarter than me, and we developed Touchpoint. And what Touchpoint does is you pre-record a voicemail, and you sit down and you call 50 people an hour, and you talk to 30% of them, and you have good conversations about, are you interested in looking at another vehicle? If you're not and you love your car, that is the best call I could have made today. I really appreciate you taking my call. Thank you very much. And you hang up, and it calls the next person, and you have the same conversation. And if we're dealing with the 8% of the people that are in market, and you're phoning 150 people or 50 people an hour, in 2 hours you should be able to have 8 conversations about somebody buying a car, which is completely different than if you sit down with a list of 1,000 people. You're maybe going to do that once a day, every 2 days, whatever the case may be. So really, Touchpoint as a technology, any phone, any computer in North America can use the system, and yeah, you sit your team down, and they're dialing 400-500 people a day, and you're just looking for live conversations. And when you have them, you have good ones. And when the customer says, "Yeah, I might be interested in engaging your offer," whatever that offer is, then you book an appointment. You send them a calendar reminder within the system, and it'll give them a 2-hour reminder that they have a test drive at your dealership on whatever model it is you discussed, and you move on. So even if it's not touch point, and I just need to emphasize this, and I think Josh, you'll support me with this statement. You need to make sure that the people who are making all these calls in a day have some technology to help them.
Oh, definitely.
Because they burn fast, and then then you have turnover, and then you just can't get that culture that you support so much in this show and your other show, just how important that is. You can't get that. You can't build that culture if you have constant turnover. And when you ask these people to make all these phone calls, it's tough. And if you don't think it's tough, take a day off and go sit in BDC and make phone calls for a day, and then see how much that technology will help you. Right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The last time anybody of any authority sat in a BDC and made calls for a day, Josh, was never.
It's funny you say that, because Glenn Lundy was the GM of Dancum Chevrolet, and I don't remember if this was 2016. Probably 2016 is when he came back. He was like, "This year I'm going to spend a day a week for the next month in the BDC, and I'm going to make calls. I'm going to act like a BDC rep." And I think he lasted a week, maybe 2 weeks. A lot of great things happened. We got 2 screens right off the bat. It was amazing. We got that, but you realize when you're not in that world, and that there's multiple things going on. Internet lead comes in, chat comes in, a phone call comes in, all at the same time, and there's so much going on.
Yep.
And there's so much outbound activity happening that you don't realize that this isn't the car dealership of 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 12 years ago, whatever the case. This is not that beast anymore. It's a whole different animal, which is probably the reason why I'm in this business today, is because it's not the old gig. It's definitely changed. But get inside your BDC and sit down in there and go, see what they do and respect it. If you're looking at training new salespeople, get them in there and let them listen and understand what goes into making 50 outbound calls in an hour. Because like he said, with the list, you hand a list to, I'm going to use the dirty word, millennial. You hand a piece of paper to a millennial, we don't know what to do with it. We have a CRM. They're like, "Where's your notes? You didn't write your notes on the piece of paper." Yeah, it's in the CRM. What's the CRM? That's what the old guy says.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, you don't hand us that stuff, man. We don't know what to do with it.
Right. And to just touch really quickly on the comment we were talking about, the outbound calls and all the different things, it actually gets, rather than somebody of authority, GM, whatever, somebody sitting back there and actually understanding what goes on in a day. Worse than that, they actually always want to talk about people count, because they see it as a total cost with no return to the dealership, where really it's completely the opposite. If you have an amazing BDC, you can get rid of the people in the front. Like, completely, you need like one person there just to do paperwork and like the airport kiosk check-in, like just making sure that they know what they're doing, because BDC is really generating and driving everything, both front and back of the building. And so for somebody to sit, whether it's a COO or a CFO or a GM, somebody to sit and say, well, do we have too many people back there? Because, man, like, that's a lot of people, and that's a big bill, and we're paying a lot out in wages and all this kind of stuff. And until they sit back there and see what they actually do, they'll say, you know what, get me 2 more people. I need 2 more people back at this side. This just doesn't work. It's a completely different
Hey,
paradigm.
everybody. Barry just
Yeah.
got himself onto another podcast for later. We're going to definitely I'm going to get somebody on the opposing side of this so we can have a good old fashioned argument. But that is, man, you're speaking my language when you said that, because it is a huge thing that, some of the BDC managers and directors across the country face every single day is they get seen as a cost and not a profit center. And they're looking at it completely wrong by all stretch of the imagination. All stretch of the imagination. And so, Barry, for people who need to get a hold of you, reach out to you. I know we linked up on LinkedIn. And so how do they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Well, the best way, honestly, is through the website at whitegloveperformancegroup.com. And there's a contact button there, and we'll reach right back out to you. And whether it's a demo or you're just looking for some advice on how to get over a hurdle or whatever the case may be, this is what we do. It's no different than Josh. This is the industry we live in. We know it inside and out. We've been in multiple dealerships. We've seen the same problem you've got. We've got solutions, and some of them are not expensive. Some of them are really quite simple, but you just maybe haven't thought of it that way. So, yeah, whitegloveperformancegroup.com, and we can have a good chat from there. So, Josh, it was an absolute pleasure today, sir, and
always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Hopefully we can communicate again.
Sounds good. Yeah. And then remember, guys, like speed, we always say speed kills deals. Well, if you can speed up this whole process of making calls, getting more outbound activity, getting more and more things done, like that momentum is going to create so much more deals, car deals, service appointments, everything. The more we can do in a more efficient manner, and not the old school manner, like we're dialing, and then we miss a button, so we have to back. That's got to stop. We got to do leaving voicemails. It's got to stop, man. We got the speed. If you take out leaving a voicemail, you save yourself at least 15 seconds. At least 15 seconds. So if you can speed up the process, if you can speed up the efficiency, how many more car deals can you get on the board? How many happy customers can you help out? How many more relationships can you build if you just get a better speed and efficiency on doing it? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Barry, thank you so much for being on here. Everyone have an excellent, excellent day.